What if I told you that Donald Trump's tariffs, which were meant to show America's economic power, might actually be crippling US tourism, weakening trade, and giving Canada the upper hand? And what if a single offhand remark from a US ambassador lit a fire under Canadians, pushing them to turn away from the United States in ways Washington never expected? Stay with me, because this story is about more than tariffs. It's about pride, sovereignty, shifting alliances, and the very real possibility that America is losing its grip over its closest neighbor. The drama begins in Halifax, where US Ambassador Pete Hoekstra stepped onto the stage, hoping to calm the storm. The US and Canada had been at odds for months, trading tariffs like punches in a heavyweight fight. Trump insisted his tariffs were about fairness, about making sure America was not being taken advantage of. Canada pushed back with counter-tariffs of its own. The relationship, once described as the smoothest in the world, was starting to feel brittle. And in this tense moment, the ambassador chose his words carefully, or at least he thought he did. He told the audience this wasn't a trade war, just negotiations. Then he went further, saying Canadians lacked passion for the relationship with the United States. On paper, it may have sounded diplomatic. In reality, it hit like a spark in dry grass. Canadians heard something very different: dismissiveness, even condescension. Instead of softening the tone, his words poured gasoline on the fire. Imagine being told you don't care enough about your most important relationship when you're already paying higher prices on cars, metals, and household goods because of Trump's tariffs. For ordinary Canadians, the ambassador's words felt insulting. The reaction was swift and emotional. People accused Washington of gaslighting, of pretending that the tariffs were no big deal. They reminded anyone who would listen that it wasn't Canadians raising tariffs, it was Trump. And here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't just about speeches or headlines. Canadians started to show their frustration in their everyday choices. Statistics Canada reported that in August 2025, cross-border car trips from Canada into the US dropped by 34% compared to the year before. That's not just a statistic, that's millions of trips cancelled. Think about the effect: fewer Canadians shopping in American malls, fewer hotel bookings, fewer restaurant tabs. US alcohol sales in Canada went down, but Canadian book sales went up. Shopping local wasn't just about convenience anymore, it was about pride. The economic impact is measurable. Canadian exports to the US dropped by about 2% this year, equal to a $5 billion loss. But behind those numbers are families and border towns. Businesses seeing fewer customers, duty-free shops watching sales collapse, and entire communities rethinking their relationship with the US. Then came Prime Minister Mark Carney's response. Carney didn't shout. He didn't posture. Instead, he delivered a calm but clear message: Canada would only pursue deals that serve Canadians, not agreements designed in Washington. He reminded everyone that the USMCA already exists as a framework. Why would Canada rush into a bigger deal covering steel, energy, and minerals unless it clearly benefited Canada? Carney's words resonated. While the US ambassador looked frustrated, Carney appeared statesmanlike, even reassuring. He reminded Canadians that they have options: stronger ties with Mexico, deeper trade with Europe and Asia, and growing partnerships beyond Washington's reach. Carney's message was simple: Canada is not desperate. It will negotiate as an equal, or not at all. And the world was watching. European and Asian leaders noticed Canada's stance. Investors took note. In a global economy shaken by Trump's unpredictable tariffs, Canada suddenly looked stable, confident, and reliable. Ironically, Washington's pressure only highlighted Ottawa's strength. Meanwhile, in the United States, the ripple effects of Trump's tariffs were starting to show in one of the most unlikely places: Las Vegas. Think about it: Las Vegas, a city built on tourism, gambling, and spectacle, was starting to feel the pain. Crowds were smaller, casinos emptier, tips for workers cut in half. In June alone, visitor numbers dropped by 11%, a devastating blow for a city that depends on a constant flood of tourists. What's behind this? Rising costs, stricter border rules, and the collapse of Canadian tourism. The mayor confirmed Canadian visitors were down 40% so far this year. That's massive. For decades, Canadians had been reliable customers for Vegas hotels, restaurants, and casinos. Now, the faucet has slowed to a drip. And the consequences. Restaurant workers, who used to make $200 in tips a day, now bring home just $50. Duty-free shops at border crossings are down 37%. One store in New Brunswick even closed after 40 years in business. These aren't isolated anecdotes, they are signs of a broader shift. For the first time since 2006, more Americans are traveling north to Canada than Canadians traveling south to the US. Think about that. Families, sports fans, summer vacationers, they are all choosing Canadian destinations instead of US ones. Why? Because Canada looks stable, affordable, and welcoming, while the US looks expensive, unpredictable, and unwelcoming. And this is where the story takes another twist. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, a politician known for his blunt style, went straight to American television, warning US audiences about the damage Trump's tariffs were causing. Ford told CNN viewers that these tariffs were punishing American consumers, raising prices, and killing jobs. He pointed to the loss of more than 37,000 US manufacturing jobs since April and billions in new costs for the auto industry. He wasn't speaking to Canadians, he was speaking directly to Americans, hoping to stir political pressure inside the US itself. At the same time, Prime Minister Carney stuck to his patient strategy. He didn't roll out new retaliatory tariffs after Trump's August 1st escalation. Instead, he emphasized dialogue, reminding everyone that 92% of Canadian exports to the US still entered duty-free under USMCA. Why rush into a fight when the framework already protects most of Canada's trade? Carney focused on diversification. More trade with Europe, the UK, and Mexico. It's almost like Canada is playing two tracks at once. Ford takes the loud, public fight to American audiences, while Carney quietly strengthens Canada's long-term position with calm diplomacy. Together, they show a unified front, even with different styles. But here's the looming threat. Trump could decide to reopen USMCA early. Officially, the deal isn't up for review until 2026. But Trump has already shown he's willing to rip up agreements whenever it suits him. What would happen if he tried to pull the plug early? Could North American trade collapse into chaos years ahead of schedule? That possibility hangs like a shadow over every meeting, every negotiation. And yet Canada is not powerless. It holds cards that Washington can't ignore. Electricity is one. In 2024, Canada exported enough electricity to power nearly 1 million American homes. Northern states depend on Canadian hydro every single day. Unlike oil, electricity can't be stored, it flows in real time. Tariffs can't change that physics. Then there are critical minerals. Canada supplies more than a quarter of US uranium imports, essential for nuclear power plants. It's also a major supplier of nickel, cobalt, and potash, vital for EV batteries and agriculture. With US imports from Russia cut off, Canadian supplies are more important than ever. And Carney knows it. His meetings with German and Polish leaders in Europe focused heavily on energy and minerals, positioning Canada not just as America's backup plan, but as Europe's reliable partner. This is the irony. Trump's tariffs were meant to corner Canada. Instead, they are pushing Canada to diversify faster, building ties with Europe and Asia, and reminding the world that Canada is a secure supplier in a shaky global market. So, what does all this mean? In Halifax, the ambassador's words backfired, uniting Canadians instead of dividing them. In Las Vegas, tourism is collapsing as Canadians stay away. On CNN, Doug Ford is warning Americans about their own economic pain. And in Ottawa, Mark Carney is showing the world that Canada won't be bullied, it will negotiate as an equal. Trump may call this economic warfare, but Canada is turning it into resilience. Instead of folding, Canadians are adapting. Instead of retreating, they are finding strength in sovereignty and choice. Washington may still believe it has leverage, but from Halifax to Las Vegas, the signs are clear. America's grip is slipping, and Canada is writing its own playbook. And here's the question I'll leave you with. If tariffs meant to showcase US power are actually driving Canadians away, shrinking US tourism, and strengthening Canada's global ties, then who's really winning this trade war? Before you click away, I want to hear from you. Do you think Trump's tariffs are making America stronger, or are they pushing allies like Canada into the arms of other partners? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every one. And if you found this breakdown eye-opening, hit that like button, Subscribe for more deep dives into global politics and economics. And share this with a friend who needs to understand what's really happening behind the headlines. Because this story isn't over. The next twist in the U.S.-Canada standoff could change the future of North American trade, and you'll want to be here when it happens.